So today we got some season 2 patch notes, and there are a bunch of them. Most importantly, probably, is Resurgence is back for a lot of players with the Ashika Island. Hopefully it plays well, and we'll go through a lot of the new things that are coming. We get a brand new battle pass, usually not a lot of cool stuff in there. You get the free weapons. You do not have to buy the battle pass for those free weapons, and you'll be able to progress through and go through there. They added more levels instead of resetting you level 55, which is a nice change, but kind of like, why cap it at all? Just let people keep going. Even if you can go to 10,000, cool. Just let it keep going. You don't have to have rewards. People having 10,000 next to their name is enough. They don't need to overcomplicate it. We get the new weapons, which are the assault rifle, the hemlock ISO, the broadside shotgun, the dual kodachis. Those three are going to be in the battle pass, so just leveling up over time, or you can buy out the tiers or whatever you want to do. Crossbows should be a challenge, or with the Ronin event, or you could buy a bundle if you just want to skip past that. And then weapon tuning has had some changes. Tuning has been enabled for laser attachments, which weren't there before. It was kind of blocked out. Tuning sliders have been updated for numerous attachments so that they actually make sense. Sometimes they didn't. Some beneficial tuning attribute magnitudes have been increased. So the benefit that you're going for has received a buff, and the harmful part of it has been decreased. So now you should see more noticeable differences while tuning, and I would definitely recommend tuning if you kind of held off up until this point. Season 1 Pro Tune blueprints have received adjustments as well. So that's kind of weird that you could have a blueprint and then they could change over time based off of their adjustments, but beyond balancing. So now, weapon balancing. This is kind of a long section, so we'll kind of breeze through it. I already kind of have the nerfs and buffs on my other monitor, so I can kind of see through. M13B gets a buff overall. The Cast-Off 762 gets double nerfed, which makes sense. It's pretty broken. They kind of added a third damage drop-off, which should make it feel weak at range, which I don't know if it'll even be usable. Maybe in multiplayer it'll still be pretty good. The 556 Lockman increased semi-auto fire rate, which a lot of people don't use it that way. We'll have to kind of look at how that impacts the TTKs and how fast your trigger finger is at the end of the day. But that is a buff, although it'll probably go unnoticed unless you actually use semi-fire. M4 receives the same. STB 556 fixed an issue with single tap mod magazine attachment, which caused the weapon to deal considerably less damage to the upper left leg. Just a weird bug they fixed, right? Battle rifle, Lockman 762. This one ends up actually getting mostly buffs. They decreased the full auto head and torso damage, which is huge. That's going to be a nerf, but they increased all these other things. Reduced the full auto recoil, which makes sense. It's going to be easier to use. We talked a little bit about this one. It kind of had a pretty broken TTK, just wasn't all that usable. So we'll have to see how easy it is to use and compare to the new damage profile. Increased damage range, damage on long range. So the furthest range gets a slight buff, but I think that's just a multiplier based off those other values, right? Added, and this is a new thing we're going to see on a bunch of different weapons, added a minimum damage against armor stat. And I think this was already in the game for like 1 or 2 weapons. And this is something True Game Data found through hand testing, like on the M4 or something odd. And it was only on that one weapon, I believe. So now it looks like there might be some modifications that we'll have to figure a little bit more out, because I don't think they explain thoroughly at any point. FTAC Recon, it ended up getting a nerf to the full auto on the upper torso, which is okay. Most people are using semi-auto anyways, and then it got buffs across the board pretty much. So we speed it up, reduce the full auto recoil, which will make it easier to use, and they're kind of encouraging you to explore the full auto versus using the semi-auto, which has completely different damage values. So the FTAC Recon, along with many other guns, essentially has 2 versions of itself. Whether you want to stick to semi-auto or full auto, it may make more sense in multiplayer versus Warzone, depending on how the TTKs and ease of use pan out. SO14 also gets updated. Pretty much we get a buff, and then a nerf. Reduce the semi-auto headshot. So again, that, and then we get this weird damage against armor. The TAC V mostly nerfs. So decreased mid-range damage, which is there. Increased semi-auto torso damage, so they're buffing the semi-auto. Reduce semi-auto leg, decrease full auto head damage, and then reduce semi-auto fire rate. So mostly nerfs across the board. The X13 gets a nerf to the akimbo, which is kind of how most people used it. And single, it wasn't all that good to begin with, so they kind of balanced it out by buffing that. Launchers, They kind of changed how the projectiles work, so we'll see how that one works. Light machine guns. So we have the RPK, which should have been nerfed into the ground, but right here we do get 4 nerfs, so we'll see how that actually impacts it. We got small reduction to ADS movement speed, reduced mid and long range damage, so close range will still kill pretty quick, but it's an LMG. Reduced damage ranges, so those ranges won't go that far, and then small increase to ADS time, which means they slow down your aim down, so it's going to feel a little bit slower like an LMG should. Wow, increased recoil. Even though this thing has pretty much the fastest TTK in the game, they decided to nerf the recoil, which is kind of the broken part. It has good bullet velocity, and beyond that, they really can't do much. It's just very slow. There's not much going on with it. So we'll see if this is enough to keep people away from using it, because increased recoil on the RAL, no matter how fast TTK is, it's not going to be usable. Then the EBR gets a nerf, reduce the long range damage, but they increase the upper torso damage, so maybe the even that out on the TTK, and then added a minimum damage against armor, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and then added minimum for LMS. The TAC M, slight increase to fire rate, but I think the recoil is still a little bit too much for that gun. Maybe that's something people use in multiplayer with the increased upper torso damage. Melee, they actually went through and adjusted the melee, increased non-lunging melee damage range, allows players to hit equipment on ground with melee while crouched. So they this is more of a fix. And the melee attacks with non-melee weapons will now that they've added a melee weapon, they want to make the dual Kodachis powerful. So what they did is they made it now it takes 3 hits to melee instead of 2, which is something we had at the end of Warzone. That was a huge quality of life. It leads to a lot of issues. Then the Vazneb, we got a nerf. They reduced the mid to long range damage. That's the middle damage, I would believe, or maybe they modified both. It's kind of unclear there. The Miniback reduced damage ranges. Miniback gets a nerf, and then whatever the heck this last one is with the minimum damage. So Miniback wasn't all that great in Warzone, but in multiplayer, it was pretty good, especially with the extra magazine ammo. We got the Fennec. It got decreased overall damage, decreased headshot damage, so double nerf there. The headshots are going to do less, and then the multiplier's less, so it does less than that. Added minimum damage against the armor, so again, that thing pops up. Then we have the snipers. We have this, pretty much gets a nerf all the way across. They slow it down, reduce the movement speed, reduce the long range damage, so maybe not going to be nearly as effective. And then small decrease the bullet velocity, so it's going to be harder to hit shots. What that number is could be minimal because it says small. It would be cool if they use actual percents or numbers, but I guess it's simple. And then attachment, reduce the ADS penalties for bipods, which people really weren't using. Fix an issue with choke attachment, scaling hip spread incorrectly. And then there's vehicles. We get the new personal watercraft. We got some new operators. We got Ronan's part of the battle pass. Audio adjustments. Proximity chats now fades more effectively over distance. Improved sound effect of reloading underwater. Warzone 2, we get Ashika Island, a new map brought to you by our partners at High Moon Studios. Same people who made Fortune's Keep, so I expect it to play very similar. We'll kind of see. For now, the map will host a new Battle Royale Resurgence mode and will also be available in DMZ at launch. We got all the different POIs, which you'll see once you get in. Map updates to Al Mazrah. We get this Afghan section of the map, which hopefully will be a multiplayer map at some point. So downed aircraft at Satik Caves, underground tunnels in Suburbs 14, new passenger train moving counter-directional to the existing cargo train. Okay, because there's 2 tracks. I guess it goes the opposite way. Interesting. Added a path through cliffside north of Zarqwa Hydroelectric and an added vehicle ramp to garage rooftops in Al Malik International. Okay, Gulag has been updated to better suit 1v1. So even though it's going to be the same map, 1v1, they've kind of modified it to adjust for that. These are the playlist. For Ashika Island, it's going to be quads 52, and there's no any other options currently that it starts with. We get LTM mode, which is Resurgence, is back. I don't like the idea of new limited time mode. That should be all time mode, but whatever. Respawns are disabled on the 4 circles, so keep a close eye on the clock. And they've essentially kept it the same as we've had with all of Rebirth Island and Fortune's Keep, where if you get a kill, you'll get a ping, the timers go off. We got to kind of add up how fast the zones move, and then also how long it takes for that respawn timer to happen compared to Rebirth, because I have those numbers, and we can kind of take a look at if it's faster or slower. And then there's new score events. Basically, you'll get these pop-ups on screen when you do certain things in game. Hunt and track down mechanic. At any point during a match, eliminating an enemy player will display the squad member for a few seconds on the minimap. Specific to solos, eliminating an enemy player will display the location upon redeployment for 10 seconds. So they kept that once solos gets added. Loadouts. Players can acquire their loadout via 2 methods. In Resurgence, towards the end of the first circle, there's a public event that drops a loadout crate for your squad. Loadout drop markers are also available for via purchase by station using the same pricing scaling as standard Battle Royale, which also got significantly reduced. Strongholds are disabled. Weapons found via ground loot always have attachments. Blue Resurgence supply boxes restock after 90 seconds. Both restore honor tags and eliminations show red dots on the minimap. And enemy AI combatants only spawn during data heist public event or during search and seizure contracts, which I don't believe are in the game right away. Private matches are enabled for Battle Royale Standard, which is going to be awesome for Al Mazrah. We should be able to get some tournaments. And then spectating feature for private matches will be enabled at a later date. New features, all map, counter UAV, new score streak. We kind of know what that is. And that is going to be kind of interesting for Battle Royale and Resurgence. Redeploy packs, which is kind of cool. They brought this back from doing strongholds and black sites. You'll be able to acquire those. And they can be found in ground loot, some buy stations, but guaranteed is to do it that way. And then Ashika Island event, restore honor. This will come later on, but basically if you go back and land on your loot or one of your teammates loots you, you should be able to get a dog tag that'll ping like the kill pings for your team so they'll know where people are. Search and seizure contract, that comes later. Data heist in season. Redeploy drones in season. And then the rusher, which I don't expect to be particularly cool. But we'll see in season. So these are all things that we'll get mid-season update or even a couple weeks later once they've kind of seen how the map plays without these things and then slowly integrate them and balance the game based off of that. Gameplay adjustments. Loot that spawns across Al Mazrah has been adjusted. The existing loot pool, counter UAV was added. Cash economy has basically been changed to add more and inject more money into the game. Armor plates and vest. All players still start with the 3-plate vest now. You don't have to loot for one. And then when you spawn, initially, you're only going to have 2 plates. So you have to loot for some plates to put a plate in. And then you'll be good there. If you come back from the gulag, you do come back with 3. And then Resurgence, each time you redeploy, you're only going to start with 2 plates. So you'll have to find a plate because you will be low health. It doesn't talk about spawn protection. And we'll see kind of how that is once we get in game. Perk packages are now customizable. But Overclock and Bird's Eye are disabled. Overclock was really never one that you could use anyways. Doesn't make sense. But Bird's Eye being completely gone is nice. I thought they would rebalance it. But maybe we'll see it down the road. Buy stations. Spawn locations have been adjusted. All spawn locations will be static across the map, so you'll have a good expectation of where it is and where all the different buy stations are. That's where they are indefinitely, at least until they make changes. And then they made change to loadout markers, 8K, then 12, 16, and 20. And essentially you can see the breakdown there per player. Black sites and strongholds. This is where you're going to get a redeploy pack, which is kind of like a respawn. Like you just be able to come back a respawn token, right? AI has been weakened, so they're still going to be annoying, but they're not going to be broken where they're just killing instantly downing you. They're supposed to be kind of a nuisance when you're there, but beyond that, you're good. It says once you get to the final 3 zones, all AI just disappear. Champions Quest, this is for the nuke contract. It says the adjustments to difficulty. Doesn't say if it's harder or easier, and then there's new rewards for doing it. Backpack inventory. Loot will now drop out of all containers in the world, similar to loot from supply boxes. Eliminated players will drop loot onto the ground rather than loot-filled backpacks because you're not going to have medium and large backpacks. Hopefully they bring back the 3rd weapon slot because that seems like what most people liked about that, beyond being able to carry 9 score streaks or whatever. Loadout drop 2nd. Loadout drop public event has been added, which means you'll drop will be in the 1st and 5th circles. And we did have a call with them about this. And even though the plane starts coming in the 1st, the loadout actually hitting the ground will be closer to the start of the 2nd for kind of just comparison there. And this will be like similar to what we had in Warzone 1. Hopefully Scavenger ends up being like fully loaded because there's not a fully loaded option when you are regaining near the 5th zone. And then spawn protection. Oh, they did. Player with spawn between 64 and 19 meters off the ground. That's kind of an interesting number. I wonder if that's all. Maybe they do that even if you're, I don't know. That's kind of crazy. We'll have to see how that one, maybe we'll get some broken clips in Al Mazrah. Gulag players will now face one-on-one. Flag control replace the jailer. And then player loadouts will change as circle progress, as you can include basically a bunch of things, and each zone will be different, which is kind of unique die early, you get these other guns, and vice versa. And there is cash on there. Pre-match loadout selection is back, so you'll be able to edit those. Plating improvements, global plating animation speed is increased by 25%. So you will actually drop your weapon and plate faster, it seems like. Movement speed increased while plating. I don't expect a huge difference. It's still going to be slower than Warzone 1. Players can now sprint while plating, and then players can now bust through doors while plating and break glass. Ping visibility, each member will have a unique color highlighting their name and pings. Interrogating a new reveal mechanic. Basically, you're going to get red outlines, and then loot improved, the separation of loot, so it spreads evenly and doesn't get stuck in and glitch through walls and stuff like that. Combat records are finally here. 2 combat records will only be from the activation date forward. So it starts today. You get brand new stats, 0 wins, 0 kills, 0 anything. So you can get kind of a fresh start. So if you've been playing quite a bit, hopefully you improved and you're going to start off with some nice stats if that's what you aspire to have. But any wins you had, that's only going to be on your calling card. Play again has been added with those options. A bunch of bug fixes. DMZ, there's a new exclusion zone, weapon case, a bomb maker, new rewards, a new faction only for multiplayer owners. And then we have Season 2 reset. Faction progress has been reset for Season 2, which kind of always stuff we've talked about. Adjusted the AI across Al Mazrah, including numbers of AI spawning and accuracy, which is probably tied to what we saw. Infiltration locations have been updated. Dead drop locations, exfiltration locations, and boss locations have been updated in Al Mazrah. Looking ahead, Season 2 Reloaded, we're going to get new content. We're going to get new raid, new maps, other stuff like that. And then Warzone Ranked is confirmed. It says Season 3 confirmed. So if you're into ranked, but you don't want to play multiplayer and you've been waiting for Warzone to finally get it, I don't know how well it'll play or if it'll have different weapon tuning or different health like Iron Trials. It'll be interesting. We'll get more information on that. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching as always. Have a great day.